Coach Harbaugh said you can't go 2-0 without going 1-0. And the Chargers did just that on Friday night against the Chiefs in São Paulo, Brazil. My name is Taylor and I'm the host of the Electric Edge podcast. Welcome to this episode where we break down the Chargers' win against the Chiefs. It's been a long time coming. The Chargers haven't beaten the Chiefs since 2021. The Chargers played well in every aspect of the game on Friday against the defending AFC champions. We're going to go through all the different points of the game in this episode. I'm going to talk about some of the predictions I had in my prior episode when I talked about how the Chargers could dethrone the Chiefs. And just looking forward as far as what this team looks like. There's a lot of questions around the offensive line. The offensive line held this game. The defense looked great. Some surprises on the defense too, which I'll talk about. We're going to go through it all in this episode. If you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod. Also, follow me on TikTok at Electric Edge Pod. So without further ado, let's talk about this great Week 1 win against the Chiefs. Chargers won 27-21 on Friday against the Chiefs. Herbert played phenomenal. Justin Herbert was 25 of 34 on Friday night, 318 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, a QBR of 88.3, and a rating of 131.7. He also added 32 yards on the ground. Say what you want about Justin Herbert. Yes, there's been some questionable games that people, at least announcers on TV, go back to in the playoffs, but he showed up and he balled out on Friday. He was definitely the better quarterback on Friday. When he needed to, he used his legs, which goes back to the fact that he's actually healthy this year. I mean, if you can get a performance like that from him every single week, he's going to definitely be in the MVP conversation this year. We saw some great things from our wide receivers. Last year, we had Ladd, which we didn't know what we were going to get out of him. Quentin Johnson came off his rookie season having a lot of bad drops, but everyone in that wide receiver core, including the tight ends, stepped up as well. Quentin Johnson had 5 catches for 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. McConkey had 6 catches, 74 yards. Old Frank Keenan Allen had 7 catches for 68 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Conklin showed up. He had 2 catches for 50 yards. Will Disley had a big catch, and he also helped convert on a 4th down 2 in the game. Trey Harris got his first catch of his NFL career. But the one thing I'll mention, which was not the case for a majority of last year, plus the game against the Texans in the playoffs, is Herbert spread the ball all over the place. He had 8 different receivers he hit in this game. Last year, in the game against the Texans in the playoffs, Ladd had like 90% of the catches for almost 200 yards. Say what you want. It's Week 1. It's a big game. There's a lot of hype around it, but all of the discussion around the Chargers losing Slater, the offensive line stepped up, and this offense looks like the real deal. I think my only caveat is they need to get the run game going. Hampton had 15 carries for 48 yards, and the second rusher behind him was Herbert. And I mentioned in my prior episode, I think the Chargers needed about 100 yards rushing to beat the Chiefs. They had 90, so I was pretty close there. Defense looked great. I was very surprised at Dante Jackson. I wasn't really sure what we were getting out of him, and Minter, I talked about, he was part of that starting core 4 of corners. He played phenomenal. I thought he played great, and his PFF grading reflected that, which we'll talk about in a minute. I think Kansas City has definitely some issues on the defensive side of the ball. Herbert just picked apart that secondary. Even when they got some pressure on him, when they ran blitzes, Herbert either got rid of the ball quickly or used his legs to get out of the pocket. So if Kansas City wants to contend again, they need to fix whatever going on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I know they're a bit younger. They had lost some players, but they kind of got exposed by Herbert on Friday. But I'm not going to talk too much about Kansas City. That's not what this show is about. I mean, Mahomes did what Mahomes was going to do. He played well. They lost Worthy on the 3rd play of the game, which definitely hurt them. But the Chargers went into São Paulo. They heard all the noise. They made a statement. They came out 1-0 going into another divisional game next week against the Raiders. So before I go into grades and stuff, I want to touch back on what I had mentioned in my prior episode about the 5 keys for the Chargers to beat the Chiefs. I had mentioned that the Chargers need to keep the Chiefs' time of possession between 25 and 28 minutes. The time of possession for the Chiefs was 27 minutes. Keep Mahomes off the field, you have a chance to win. And the Chargers did the one thing they needed to do is not give Mahomes the ball back and have the last chance to score. We've seen it time and time again. The Chargers have the lead. Mahomes gets the ball back, goes down the field, either puts him in field goal range or scores a winning touchdown. It's a testament to Harbaugh and this coaching staff to, one, put the Chargers in the position to execute and keep the ball last, but also not have the Chargers are going to Chargers mentality. I have no doubt that if Brandon Staley or another coach was coaching on Friday, that the Chargers would have given the ball back to Mahomes with under 2 minutes to go and they would have lost the game. Culture matters, standards matter, and I think that this is a reflection of what Harbaugh has done in his year and a half being the coach of the Chargers, setting standards, setting expectations, believing that you are good enough. And it is coming to fruition. You could say whatever you want about last year's record being 11-6, that it was a fluke, they had an easy schedule, but this team looks light years ahead of what that team did last year. And they beat a team they couldn't beat since 2021. Not at home. You could call it a home game. It wasn't at home. That stadium was filled with 75% Chiefs fans. It was a hostile environment. They came in. They never gave the Chiefs the lead. They held their own. And they won the game. I couldn't have been happier on Friday. I was so excited. I was yelling, screaming. I'm shocked the cops didn't get called at my house, but it was really cool to see. So my first point was about the Chiefs and their time possession. I also mentioned that the Chargers had to score more than 20 points in order to beat the Chiefs. In my first video I ever did on the show, I predicted that the Chargers would win 24-21 in São Paulo. I was pretty close. I was off by 3. But it's imperative, especially look at typically the scores that the Chargers had, especially last year. They didn't score more than 20 points against the Chiefs. I thought it was imperative they had to score more than 20 in order to give themselves a chance to beat the Chiefs, and they did execute that on Friday. So let's check that box too. That was one of my other points in my prior video of how the Chargers could beat the Chiefs. I talked about winning the turnover battle. There was no turnovers in the game, so I'll take that as a win. The Chargers did get some pressure on Mahomes, but Mahomes does what Mahomes does. I was really surprised at that one throw he made where he's falling down and hits Juju. It went through 3 defenders. I just couldn't believe that ball wasn't tipped, and that's kind of what all the announcers were talking about, but didn't have to win the turnover battle, which is great. But that's something that I did mention in my prior episode, but it didn't have to come to fruition. I talked about protecting Justin Herbert. The offensive line, say what you want about it. They did their job. Also, the running backs picking up key blocks. They did their job. Joe Alt looked phenomenal at left tackle. Now, that is his natural position that he played in Notre Dame, but he looked phenomenal. I mean, there's a couple clips where he just stopped Chris Jones, just held him up like it was nothing. It'll be interesting to see once Slater returns next year, if they keep all on the left side of the line and put Slater at right tackle and how that shuffles. But it makes sense now why the Chargers last year in the draft, they only had 2 people on their board that they were going to take in the first round. It was Alt or Brian Thomas Jr. Alt played phenomenal, kept Herbert upright, and we'll go through his PFF score here in a little bit. And that was my one key to the game, keeping Herbert upright, giving him time to throw. You gave him time to throw. He threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Couldn't ask for anything more there. Red zone execution. This was a problem last year. They would kick field goals. They couldn't score. The Chargers put up 27 this time. If you are driving down the field against the Chiefs, you have to score. There is just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Keep the pressure on them. The Chargers did that very well. There was times in that game where the momentum started to shift back to the Chiefs, especially after halftime with Hampton running out of bounds, giving Mahomes back the ball. You got to keep the pressure on them. You have to score. My other point, too, was limiting Mahomes' magic. Yes, he had Mahomes' magic. We saw a couple plays. I mean, I don't understand how Hollywood Brown got so open in the fourth quarter and he hits him down the field. That's another issue. The Chargers did their job. The defense bent a little bit, but they did not break. They held when they needed to. They made big stops when they needed to, especially on third down. Let me pull up the stat here from third down. The first 7 tries the Chiefs had on third down, they didn't convert any of them. That'll also include a sack from Dion Henley in the red zone. So Kansas City last year, which ranked second in the NFL in third down conversion rate at 48.47%, converted just 5 of 14 third downs on Friday. The defense just picked up right where it did from last year. The Chiefs are going to make plays. They have Mahomes. They still have Kelsey who could produce at a somewhat high level. But I thought the defense did their job. They played well. They made the plays when they needed to. They stopped them on third down. The Chiefs did go for it a few times on fourth down, but I thought all in all, the defense played great. I think it's only going to get better from here as long as everyone stays relatively healthy. Denzel Perryman did get hurt, but Troy Dye played great filling in for him. I'm really happy that the future is looking up for the Chargers this season. And I'm glad that a lot of this chatter prior to week 1 about the Chargers are going to finish 3rd, 4th in the division, all the predictions that the Chiefs are going to win on Friday, that's all been shut out now. Chargers took care of business. They can only build upon it from here going into another divisional game next Monday night. So let's go through some PFF gradings here. All right, so we got top 5 PFF offensive grades against the Chiefs. Justin Herbert leads with 84. Joe Alt, 74.9. QJ at 73.7. Ad at 71.3. And Will Disley at 69. Now we have our bottom 5. I think the bottom 5 is going to be a continuous trend during the season, and the offensive line needs to hold. Can't break, but they need to hold. They need to do what they did on Friday. Just give Herbert enough time to get the ball out. But right now we got Jeremy Salyer at 50.3, Brad Bosen at 52.4, KLS at 54.9, Marion Hampton at 55.1, and Mekhi Becton at 56.8. I won't hold it too much against Becton. He was playing sick. He was questionable even to play on Friday, so I'm not going to give him too much grief. I mean, you'd see the poor guy run off the field, get oxygen, trying to stay in the game, so I won't give him too much slack about that. I know he's a better player than that. So let's go on to defense. Top 5 Chargers PFF grades on defense. So Derwin James leads at 81.3. Illa Murphy, 80.1. Dante Jackson, which I'd mentioned, played very, very well on Friday. I was very surprised at 77.7. Tarheeb Still at 71.2. And our man Tier Tart at 70.4. The slap heard around the world. Bottom 5 on defense. Cam Hart at 41.2. Tito Obonia at 42. Troy Dye at 49.7. Bud Dupree at 52.3. Jarmary Caldwell at 53.4. So there's one more thing I want to mention about Friday's win, and it's that I think Greg Roman needs to get some credit here. So I'm the first one to admit I bash him. I tweeted out I think there was a run on like 3rd and 3. I'm like, the Greg Roman special's coming. But he let Herbert play. Herbert was throwing the ball for the majority of the game. I don't know what conversations were had, but they have shifted from that run-first approach to letting Herbert play to his strengths. I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of a full season like this. Let Herbert do what Herbert is best at, but you also have 2 big physical running backs also to run the ball. I love it. I want to see more of this. I love watching Herbert sling the ball all over the field. People talk about that if you wanted to build a quarterback, you take him as the blueprint. Just let him do his thing. Unleash Herbert. He's healthy. If he needs to run, he can run, but just let him sling the ball all over the field and let the receivers that we have make plays. I got to give Greg Roman credit here. So before I end this episode, I just want to say I had a lot of comments on prior videos and some other comments that were made on videos I commented on YouTube about how the Chargers didn't have a shot, Slater's down, I'm delusional, that this team isn't better than teams of the past with Williams, Eckler, and Allen. All I have to say is numbers don't lie and ball don't lie. The Chargers took care of business. This team looks like the real deal. And I'm going to go back to what I said before, that coaching matters. Yes, there was teams where Eckler, Allen, Williams were on the field, but you had bad coaching. You had the Staley defense and some of that. And also Herbert's better, right? In those years, it was year 2, year 3 for him. Herbert's better. Herbert's a lot better. And he has a coach that believes in him, that is trying to set him up for success, that talks about him in such a high praise that everyone else around him needs to elevate to Herbert's level. It's week 1 and I'm a Chargers fan. I'm a bit biased, but I think this team is special. I really do. To go into Brazil, where all the attention is on the Chiefs and Travis Kelce and Mahomes, like I was going through X and Instagram and my whole feed was interviews of them. It wasn't about the Chargers. This was a statement win, and as Coach Harbaugh said, that September 5th will go into Chargers lore, which it definitely will. And I think this is a great stepping stone, and it's a great way to kick off the season. The Chargers get some well-needed rest now. They don't play until Monday night in Vegas, which will be a quick flight for them too. They don't have to fly across the country, which is nice. I'm looking forward to it. And if you are going to the game on Monday, I will be there. I will be at the Chargers tailgate as well. So come say hi. Love to talk some Chargers ball with anyone. But I'm super excited. I was super stoked on Friday. Great way to start the weekend. Great way to start the season. And the Chargers need to keep this rolling. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod. Follow me on TikTok @ElectricEdgePod, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the game, what you thought went well, what you thought didn't go well, and what player you thought stood out the most. Most people are going to say Herbert, but I like to hear some other opinions about some other players that played extremely well on Friday night. So let me know your thoughts below. With that being said, as always, go Chargers and bolt up.